Hi, it's Wendy Code, and welcome to my studio. I'm going to be working on these larger panels today, but first I will be taking down a series here. So this is a group of work that I have been uh, painting for a couple of weeks. If you haven't been to my channel before, I'm an artist and I am working with acrylic on paper, and I have hollow core doors lined up so that I can do multiple uh, paintings, and the paper is on both sides of the doors, so I really have a lot of surface area within a small studio, smallish. I love my studio, but it's smallish. So, and it's really interesting for me process. I'll describe to you how I work layer upon layer with the paint, and I'm aiming for completion, of course, something that is uh, in my mind, uh, something that does work with the colors and the shapes and the rhythms and all of those principles that pretty much all art, whether it's conscious or unconscious, plays with. And these are done, but I didn't know they were done until over the last few days. So I stopped painting on these panels. Most of them are not done, but these particular ones are done. And that's what I have to do sometimes, is I just have to stop and wait. And if I look at them over time, and I think there's nothing more for me to do. Everything is set on the picture plane. Um, Adding something would not enhance, taking something away would not make it better. And so it's a good place to be because I get to take down a series of work and put up another series. So I'm going to do that now while you're here. And you can just see the process in real time of the cycle that is gone through, starting with the blank pages that go up, stapling those pages onto the boards, making sure all the staples are in place. Working on paper is my favorite thing to do. I've worked on multiple surfaces over many, many years, and it's all good. But there's a real affinity that I have with paper that started very, very early on in my career when I actually began with printmaking, and I ordered a roll. These are the good old days of Arches, the French-made rag paper, 100% cotton rag paper. And this roll of paper was 3.5 feet by 100 yards. I don't know how many of those rolls that I went through, a lot. And because I like to work on a large scale, and that gave me at least 3.5 feet in one direction, and then I could tear off sheets that were 4 feet or 6 feet or 8 feet, 10 feet. Uh, when I got larger than that, I would have to move to wood. I'd get Luan and gesso the surface and work on 2 or 3 panels at a time of wood. But that paper was absolutely exquisite. And back then, because it goes back a way, it was so thick. You know, I forget what the measurement is, but the paper was very, very substantial. I used to joke and say you could, shoot bullets at this paper and it wouldn't go through. Very, very durable. It's probably been halved by now, and of course, I don't know that you can get the rolls here in the U.S. Daniel Smith used to be the go-to place for rolls of Arches, the 100 yards. Of course, you can get 10 yards, but 10 yards, it just doesn't seem like it's enough to bother. It's a couple of paintings and you're done. So that was my first experience, not my first experience with paper, but with the quality of paper. And of course, it's meant for printmaking, and watercolor, etc. Acrylic, sure, you can use acrylic paint. And the thing with paper, though, is that when you get it wet, then it moves. It starts to change its shape ever so slightly, which is another thing that I really like. It's like an organism. It has a life. It has there's definitely other surfaces that do that, like canvas. I don't know. I just like paper. So, removing the first group. Now, I put the paper pretty close together, and what happens sometimes is they do adhere. It's not a good thing, sticking together, but I get an X-Acto knife and I pull them apart. I think there are better ways to do it, but I covered my boards with butcher paper, and then I put some tape, some plastic wrap tape, around the edges so that when the paint drips, it's not sticking the paper, gluing the paper to the background paper. So not gluing my art paper to the butcher paper. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So then I have to take an X-Acto knife and I have to separate, because the acrylic is plastic and it will just adhere. So there's a couple spots here. I'm just going to have to score it carefully. And just where there's a larger buildup of the acrylic. Now, there are plenty of unusual areas, splashes and deviations on my paintings, so that it's not an exact edge to begin with. I try to keep them as intact as possible. So now I have the 3 images. As opposed to the one long image. I think I showed you this one upside down. That is right side up. And I'll continue on to the next like I said, over time, I've really experimented with a lot of different scales, a lot of different materials. And I continue to do that. I go back and forth, not as much as I used to, because I've come to a point where I'm comfortable with the material that I'm working on, but it doesn't mean that I don't change it up. And I would do more of that if I had a different studio situation, but I'm not complaining. You know, I've had dozens of studios. One of my favorites was the studio I had at PS1 in New York, Long Island City. I had a whole classroom because it was an old school, huge room, you can imagine. And, you know, I could do very, very large paintings there. I tend to work to the scale of my space. So if I have a large studio, I do large work. If I have a smaller studio, I do smaller work. I think that makes sense. But I can work very, very large even in a smaller studio space. But I have to kind of rig it somewhat so that I can still manage the surfaces. And I have less interest in moving big, you know, canvases around than I once did. So I will stick to these smaller panels. And you can imagine what my walls would be looking like. I did not have these hollow core doors. So these are hollow core doors. I've wrapped them in brown paper just to, you know, kind of keep them protected. That's a relative term. You can see all the paint that's gone into them. But there's nothing that will destroy a wall quite like a million staple holes in its surface. So I did this a little bit backwards. I should have started at the bottom and worked my way up, but here we are. I've got a little problem with paint adhering these two pieces of paper together, so I'm going to try and get this to stay. Maybe I'll try putting one of these back in the hole. Won't take much. Oh, not that one. That's why they make staple guns, because they work a lot better than a pair of pliers. Put a staple. Well, I guess that's not going to work. All right, well, I'm just going to let it hang eventually. I'm not as precious about, I'm just putting my knee up so that I can secure, since I don't have the other hand that I once had with this. I'm just using my other body parts to secure. It looks like this panel will come off okay. I don't think it's attached. We'll see. Helps to take all the staples out. That one caused a little tear. Not happy with that. No, not going to work. So we just keep going. One hand and one knee. It's better with two hands because sometimes these staples, happened here, I took that out already, will, have paint adhere to them, and then they give a little extra tear on that paper, which I'm trying to avoid. As ridiculous as this might look, it gets the job done. Until I can reach my X-Acto knife, which is on the table. There. There we go. All right, well, that pulled out quite naturally, just with the weight of the paper itself. So that saved me a little job that I don't have to do now, separating those. That one, I have a handful of staples I'll just get rid of here. Now this is the one that I didn't think was adhered, but it is, more than the other. So, with my trusty X-Acto knife, I'll just score it enough. Not sure how the paint got up. Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, right. So I was painting with a squeegee, and I painted up, and it kind of pushed the paint underneath. It's not the greatest, unless you really want to glue the two together, which I've done here. But give me a moment. Get these Siamese twins separated. All right. And yeah, there'll be a little bit of a area where there's some pull from the other side. Those to me are beauty marks. Those to me are the struggles that the paper made on its own behalf to get to where it is right now. So I don't see that as a problem, just a solution that hasn't happened yet. There we go. And just a little port there on its separation. One more spot, one more spot. Whew. Okay. One was on the bottom. This one was in the middle. I like this one. Actually, I like them all. Kind of like children. You tend to grow rather fond of them. And I am rather fond of them. So now I have a couple of choices. I'm not going to put the new paper on at the moment. I'm going to turn the panel around, and you can see that I'm using a different kind of paper. I found an old atlas, and atlas paper is a great paper. It was made to last a very long time, even though the country's borders in some cases did not last as long as the atlas or the paper. But deconstructing it, often libraries will deacquisition. It's not useful. I've had several, and I've really been torn with tearing pages out of books. But I am recycling, and sometimes they really make something quite exceptional that wouldn't happen any other way. So I'm very grateful to the paper, and I'm very, very happy with the results. So a day in the studio, I will continue to work on a few other projects, do some cleanup, something that is inherent in a studio practice. You work, you make a mess, you get everything out, you move it around. And then at the end of the day, you don't have to, but over time I've come to realize that it's probably a good idea to put it away so that I can find it the next day, so that I'm not standing at a board with my knee and my hands and, something in my teeth and trying to reach for a hammer that's on, that didn't get put away. So I'm so happy that you are joining me today, and maybe other days too. I'll take you through my day-to-day as an artist, and I look forward to seeing you on the next tape. Thanks for being here.